Hello and good afternoon and good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. We are meeting here for our monthly Keep Data Private community event. Um, our topic today will start with the most important thing, and that is the upcoming US presidential election in, well, the US, of course. So our Keep Data Private project is endorsing Kamala Harris. She is the only viable option in this election. The reason for that is, first of all, she has really good policies. She has been a prosecutor. She knows what kind of people she will be dealing with. And she had 4 years of practice shadowing and working with Joe Biden. So that's all good. More importantly, potentially, is that the alternative is Donald Trump. Don the Con has been up to all sorts of activities throughout his life, none of which involved work, some of which have resulted in Donald Trump being an indicted criminal. He has run into issues with the law multiple times, and he has promised to be a dictator on day one.
He's a convicted criminal as well.
Yes, convicted criminal. Thank you for the correction. And therefore, the only option for the election on the 5th of November is to vote for Kamala Harris. Now, linking back to our Keep Data Private topic, for me, the most frightening thing around the elections are that Trump has promised to chase down, persecute, and imprison all his opponents. There are some that are more in the public eye. For example, Madam Pelosi has been one of those over the years. There is Harris herself, of course, Biden, and a lot of journalists who are out there. I don't think, and I highly doubt that he will stop with big brand names, though. So, what does that mean for normal people? It means that any and every comment you ever made about Trump, about the GOP, or elections in general can and most probably will be used against you. So, I'm Daniela. I'm not an American. I'm not allowed to vote in the US. However, as you can hear, I have strong convictions about it because the outcome of the US elections has always, and I reckon will continue to have an impact on the rest of the world. So, Marcel, who is also on the call today, um, do you want to comment at this point about my view on the elections and its importance on the world?
I think the whole dictatorship stance, the fascist dictator that Trump wants to be, that Trump has said he will be, that Trump, you know, has a plan with his what's it called again, the 2025
Yeah. The Project
roadmap.
2025.
Project 2025. Thank you. The Project 2025 roadmap as to how that will be implemented is exactly the playbook that every other dictator uses. So whether it's Putin, who we all know he loves, arresting anyone who disagrees with him and his policies, anyone who stands up and tries to protest, every single protester gets tagged in the sense that people know who they are, the video cameras and surveillance cameras that are out there. People know who was at the protest. Those people will get chased down and prosecuted. And the US has those tools and those means. I mean, when we actually are convicting people who have committed crimes, they are able to track them down.
Yes.
Look at the January 6th rioters, who attacked the Capitol. Right? Most of them, right, who committed crimes have been arrested, have been indicted, have been charged with those crimes, and many of them have been found guilty of those crimes. So the US has the method of being able to identify you if you were there and attended something and you did criminal activities, and pursue that. So the methods and the means are there. The problem with the Donald Trump approach is that it will be not someone who's committed a crime per se, or he will change the law so that disagreeing with him and standing against him or uttering anything against him, the same as Putin does, right, will become the crime, and then they will track you down. So it's that's the issue I have, is that tracking people down and finding them. We all think, yeah, that's a good idea, that's great, okay, as long as they're committing crimes, and we agree that criminals should be prosecuted and convicted and punished. It's when we disagree that those are actual crimes that we have a problem going forward. So yeah, I agree. That's the issue at stake with this election. The flip side to that, of course, is how do we protect our privacy, which of course is what KeepDataPrivate is all about. So before we get into that, I don't know if I want to pass back to you.
Yes, I completely agree with Marcel that there are different ways of looking at the world and at situations. Currently, there seems to be one party in the US that takes the law more seriously than the other one. And again, it is an important situation and election for everyone out there, and for people, as Marcel said, how to keep yourself safe. First and foremost, I would not recommend to stop going outside and to take part in social life. Far from it. I do encourage people to be active in their communities, to work on and try and build a better future for everyone. If you have an idea of something that would make your life better, possibly your family's life better, your neighbors, your whole community, then keep doing the good work, because somebody has to do it. And the more of us there are, the better. So don't stop. Just keep doing what you're doing. Simply be smart about how you go about it. One example is if you sign up to a petition, for example, use the data that's required, but don't enter more details than absolutely necessary. If there are surveys that you feel are important to take part in, then please do so. But again, make sure to understand what personal and private data they are collecting on you. I recently wanted to take part in a survey because I thought it was an important and a really good one. The problem was that they wanted to know my full name and my date of birth and my nationality and a few other pieces of information. When I questioned that, I was told, oh, the data will be de-anonymized, also known as, sorry, not de-anonymized, it would be pseudonymized, to use pseudonyms, so nobody knows who I am. Now, that sounds really good on paper, and in theory, it should be possible. However, in practice, if I get this database, if I get the data set and I have different pieces of or different data sets from other sources, it is very easy to de-anonymize it and to know exactly who was that one person who answered those questions. So please be smart about what information you hand out there. It's all within, some of it is within your control. So please keep doing good work, but be smart about it. Sorry, Marcel, I keep cutting you off.
No, I want to add to that. The pseudo-anonymization about data has been shown to not be good enough, because there will always be the outliers where there is only one person with that bit of data, and therefore it's very easy to tell who that person is. The pseudo-anonymization is a problem because they're using that as a cover for asking for irrelevant data. Your full name and date of birth, right, is unlikely to be relevant information unless you're doing statistics on age. You don't need someone's date of birth, and then even then you can basically give the person's age in number of years. So anyone born in that year is will be covered. So there's obviously, we know that there's a lot of people born in a particular day. Gets drastically reduced to the number of people that are actually born on a particular day in a particular year. Never mind then also adding your full name for what reason. If you're doing statistical data analysis, you don't need someone's full name going forward. So it's I've worked in informatics, and we've shown that when you pseudo-anonymize data to try and do statistical analysis of it, and the original data set may require your full name and date of birth for whatever reason, whether it be your medical health records and things like that quite often have that information associated with it, just because your birth date is part of your medical record, your name, so that people can almost pull up your record when you arrive at the doctor's office. When they try and use that information and pseudo-anonymize it, in fact, basically taking out things like name and date of birth to be able to do the statistical analysis, it has been shown that you have to be very careful with that, because sometimes you can find that one person just happens to be in a particular neighborhood that everybody knows has that club foot, and therefore all the data associated with that person is now suddenly exposed, because that person has one bit of data that is very specific to them in that particular neighborhood, in that particular zone, for example. So I think you took the right decision. When people don't need to know particular data, it shouldn't be provided. And turning around and saying, "Oh, this data is going to be pseudo-anonymized," is not an excuse at all.
Correct. Yes, I'm still. I don't know how to correctly word it, because I still would like to take part. It's a health related, as it happens, or the research was on how the park run organization has impacted the health of people in certain areas, and therefore they were working with people they know have taken part in park run before. I'm a big fan of the organization, have taken part in it in multiple countries, so go and try and look me up if you like. But I'm not willing to give out all of the information that may or may not be available on me there. So just be smart about what you do out there. One other thing that sometimes is not mentioned, because for me, a lot of my private and personal data, it's about things online, things that can be caught, stolen, online, can be hacked and broken into. But there is also data that is online, but that was created offline, also known as the real world. 3D events that actually happen in a room with other people who are also in the room. It's a bit old fashioned and traditional. I like it myself, but what happens is that people take pictures, and some of those pictures may or may not end up online. Generally, overall, that's not a bad thing in and of itself. If you like networking, if you like going out to bars, you're in a public space, thereby anyone who can see you knows that you were there. People know you have attended, they may even remember your contribution if you asked a question. You may even have been a speaker. But sometimes those events have a habit of staying around. So previously, when I grew up, you go to an event, and 20 years later, unless you had a remarkably smart sentence that you spoke or you made a fool of yourself, 20 years later, nobody remembered. It was as simple as that back then.
Surely you remember yourself.
That's correct. There are lots of things I don't remember that I actually did, that I attended, and so on. Correct. Nowadays, with pictures being online and pictures being able to be searched by AI tools, it may be different. And there are tools that you can use to search yourself what is available on you out there. The easiest one, obviously, is Google yourself. Google your name and see what comes up, or use whatever search engine you prefer. But have a look of what data is out there. A lot of resources recommend to check your financial data regularly, your credit report, just to make sure that nobody else is riding on your coattails. Make sure that you keep yourself safe online. But please go further. Try and have a look. What's out there on you? What would other people find? What would your employer find on you? Or your partner and spouse. Go and have a look. You may be surprised.
I think it's important to realize that. I think, and coming circling back to a statement you made earlier about doing stuff, going out and being in public and socializing, there are things we do in public, and I'm fully aware that there are things that are public about me that people know about me. We put these videos online; people are going to know that I believe in keeping data private, for example. That information is public, but we choose what information we want to be public. Anything that you do in public should be viewed as everybody knows about it. Anything you do in public should be something that you can't hide from. So that when we talked about earlier about the rioters, they did that in public, so people should be able to find out about that. So there's stuff that you do in public that everybody knows about. We referenced a small village scenario where everybody knows what who everyone is. So if somebody attends a particular event in a small village, because of the gossip mill, everybody will know, not just the people that attended the public event. That is how public scenarios work. If other people are there and attend that event, they will that information will be made public. The difference is if you attend a private event at someone's house, for example, things like that. You have a reasonable expectation that information you share among those people is kept private. We cannot guarantee that information is kept private. Somebody might be a gossiper and said, "Oh, so and so said this," and blah blah blah, and that information can get out in the public. And I think that's the scenario we have today with the internet when we put in things into the cloud. We may be uploading stuff into the public environment. We don't care that Facebook has all our information and anybody can access it and can do reverse searches and things like that on it and other things. But when we upload information into a database, your survey as an example, and that data gets released in a breach, and you just have to do a search on data breach in the news, and you'll find. Just today I did one. There was at least 7 new data breaches in the last week from different organizations, to the extent that advisors on data breaches are basically saying, assume that your data has been breached. You need to live your life in a scenario where the data has been breached. And what I say is anytime you upload your data into the cloud, anytime you provide that data to an organization, you're basically making that data public, because the way data has been breached is the same as that gossiper that attends your private event. That information will get out, right? And people will know about it. So be very aware that even when you upload private data, that if you don't want other people to know about it, don't upload it in the first place. It's that simple. So do things in public, be aware of what you do in public, but don't be fooled in thinking that when you upload something into a private database, be it the Addison, what is the website?
Ashley Madison, I think.
Ashley Madison. Ashley Madison website that got hacked. Be aware that it gets hacked, and people, you have to live with the consequences of the information that's got out there. And are you prepared for that? So don't assume when you upload your data that it will be pseudo-anonymized or be secure or whatever. That information may get out, and you have to think along those lines as if that data does get out, it has got out. So I think it's the mental stance you have to take when you are working with data that you're putting out there. And how would you deal with that scenario if people found out?
Yes. Now we're talking about the downsides of it and how it negatively could impact you if Trump won the election and he found you to be a Democrat, part of the Democratic Party, and possibly attending Democratic events. But also remember the positive side of things, and that became clear to me as I was going through the Baltics this year, looking at pictures from the late 1980s as the Baltic states became their independence back after having been occupied for basically 60 years at that point. Those pictures, so what happened is a human chain. 2 million people were building a human chain, just holding hands through 3 countries, standing side by side, shoulder by shoulder. And there are pictures documenting what happened. All genders, all religions, all different ideologies. All they wanted was to be independent and be their own country and have self sufficiency and self government again. And they achieved that. And their pictures were taken, obviously, for the press and for documenting the momentous event that happened there. And we can look at those pictures today and we can see who has been on there. We can see who has taken the stance for being independent. And that to me is the positive, the silver lining, if you like, to see who has been on the right side of history rather than the other side of history. So be aware of that as well. It's not only that, or it's easy in a way to think about it as having to hide away, being oppressed or anything. But it's not only that. There is the positive to it that it will be known where you stood in terms of the elections. It will be known that you stood up for data privacy, that you stood up for the law, that you stood up for the dignity of every human being. So do remember that as well. As I mentioned at the beginning, uh, don't stop the good work. Keep doing it. Just be smart about it and keep at it. Yes, Marcel?
Yeah, exactly. Be be proud of your values. Stand up to, for your values. Protect your values, because if you don't, that's
Mm-hmm.
when they are at risk. And I think that's the important point about this election, is that anybody who has values for democracy or individual rights and protection of minority rights, we can name them and we can keep naming them.
Mm-hmm.
It's will vote for Kamala Harris, irrespective of what you do or don't do with regards to policies and where you stand with policy decisions. I think Kamala Harris has very moderate policy positions.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the other day, people comparing what would happen with the tax rise if Kamala Harris versus a tax cut under Donald Trump. It's like these things are not relevant, right? If the stock price goes up or down, right, because of tax cuts, it very rarely impacts the stock market if people are worried about that. The historical data has shown that it doesn't matter who wins the election. The stock market doesn't veer up or veer down. Donald Trump tried to suggest that with the last election and said, oh, if Biden wins the election, the stock market will crash. We have seen the biggest rally, right, since the COVID, right, in the stock market since Biden has been president. It's got nothing to do with it. So people pointing out little policy differences because of ideological stances, right, is not what we should be looking at today. We should be looking at who supports us as individuals going forward, and who will make sure that, if nothing else, that there is another election in 4 years' time. Because if Trump wins, there's a strong possibility, like many dictatorships, that there won't be another election in 4 years' time. The people try and remind people who voted for Hitler back in the early 30s didn't get another chance to vote for another 15 years.
And then a little bit longer until order was restored, until everything was started to being rebuilt. Because just because the war ended in 1945, that's World War II I'm mentioning here. Just because it ended in 1945 did not mean that there were full and fair elections in 1945. That took a few more years after that.
Well, there was another dictator known as Stalin, who was even more ruthless, who prevented people from being able to vote for anyone except him. So that some people ended up under another dictatorship. Half the Germans, as we know, ended up under another dictatorship,
Yes.
and they didn't get to vote for another 50 years.
So everyone out there who is allowed to vote in the US, don't take it lightly. Think about your options. Think about how often in your lifetime you still want to go and vote. I strongly support Harris for all the obvious reasons, and even more. Not only Harris, but she needs to win Congress as well. She needs to have both houses in order to make her election promises come true. So don't only vote for Harris, but also vote Democratic down ballot, because it does make a difference to everyone in the US and a lot of people outside of the US as well.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all I had in mind for today.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I mean, there's some other things we can discuss around, but we can save that for next time. Let's see how the election turns out and how
Mhm.
important data privacy is going to be, after that.
That is true. Thanks a lot, Marcel. Thanks a lot, Marcel. Thanks a lot for everyone out there listening to us. Please do join us. We will send you the link to the invite um, at the time when you contact us. The reason we do this in advance is because we want to know who we are dealing with, and you can get to know us as well. If you prefer to simply have a link on a regular basis once a month on the website rather than having to email in, get in touch and tell us, please. We're not collecting email addresses, it's just a case of trying to avoid interruptions in our calls. That's the main reason. We will not spam you, we will not send you newsletters or anything. It purely is initially to see um, who is out there and how we're going to deal with everyone who's interested.
Yeah,
So get in touch, say hello, and see what happens.
sounds good.
Thank you, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.